She wasn't crying. That was the thing that stopped him. A 7-year-old girl with a split lip and a black eye sitting outside a gas station in rural Kentucky. And she wasn't crying. Cole Merritt had been riding for 22 years, and he had never once been stopped by silence. Until now. He had pulled into the Crossroads Gas and Fuel on Route 11 outside Harlan's Creek at 2:17 on a Wednesday afternoon because the chapter needed fuel and because Denny had been complaining about his stomach for 40 miles and there was a diner attached to the station that did a beef stew that Denny swore by and would not stop talking about until someone agreed to stop. So they stopped. 9 bikes. 9 men. The kind of entrance that made people inside the attached diner look up from their plates, and the kind of entrance that made the teenage boy working Pump 2 suddenly find something very interesting to do on the far side of the lot. Cole killed his engine first. He always killed his engine first. He swung off the bike and pulled off his helmet and ran a hand through his gray shot hair, and that was when he saw her. Pump number 3. She was sitting on the concrete curb that separated the pump island from the lot. Her back against the pump housing, knees pulled up to her chest, both arms wrapped around her knees. She was wearing a yellow raincoat 2 sizes too big for her, the sleeves rolled up 4 times, over what appeared to be a school dress with small blue flowers on it. One of her shoes had come untied. Her dark hair was in a ponytail that had mostly fallen out. She was looking at nothing in particular. Not at the bikes. Not at the men climbing off them. Not at the diner, not at the sky, just at a middle distance that was specifically nowhere. Cole had been an EMT for 11 years before the road took him. He had sat beside people in the back of ambulances who had that look. The look of someone whose nervous system had made a decision on their behalf about how much of the present moment they were going to process. It was not a child's look. It was not even specifically a human look. It was the look of a living thing that has learned to go somewhere internal when the external becomes too much. He stood beside his bike for a moment. Behind him, the chapter was doing what chapters do when they stop. Helmets coming off, jackets being stretched, the low conversation of men who have been on a road for several hours and are now doing the automatic inventory of what they need. Fuel, food, coffee, bathroom, in that order usually. Nobody else had seen her yet. Or, if they had done what people do. They had looked at the yellow raincoat and the untied shoe and the dark hair, and they had moved their eyes somewhere else because the somewhere else was easier and because there was always a reason the somewhere else was the responsible choice. She was probably waiting for someone. She was probably fine. It was probably not what it looked like. Cole walked toward her. Not fast. Not with the specific urgent energy of someone responding to a crisis, because he had learned in 11 years of emergency medicine that urgent energy in the direction of a frightened person almost always made them more frightened. He walked the way he walked everywhere. Steady, even. The walk of a man who had somewhere to be and was in no particular hurry getting there. He stopped in front of her. She didn't look up immediately. He crouched down. That got her attention. Because crouching meant he was choosing her eye-level deliberately, and people who chose her eye-level deliberately were different from people who spoke down at her from standing height. She had learned the difference. She looked at him. Cole looked at her face. He had seen injuries in his EMT years that had required him to maintain clinical detachment in order to function. He had learned to look at a wound the way a carpenter looks at a split board. Assessing, not feeling. Feeling came later when you were off the clock and had a beer in your hand and somewhere private to put it. He did not maintain clinical detachment looking at this child's face. Her left eye was swollen, nearly shut, the bruising deep purple going yellow at the outer edges, which meant it was more than a day old. Her bottom lip had a split in it that had bled and dried without being cleaned. There was a second bruise on her left cheekbone, smaller, the shape of something specific that Cole's EMT brain filed and did not share with the rest of him yet. Her right eye, the one she could fully open, was looking at him. It was the darkest brown he had ever seen on a child, and it was looking at him with the careful measured assessment of someone who had learned that adults required evaluation before trust. Cole kept his voice very quiet, very even. "Hey there." She didn't answer. "My name's Cole. What's your name?" A pause. long enough that he thought she might not answer. Lily, she said. Lily, that's a good name. He let a beat pass. How old are you, Lily? 7. 7. Okay. He kept his eyes on her face, not on the injuries on her eyes. Lily, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Can you do that? She looked at him for a long moment. Maybe, she said. Something moved in Cole's chest at that answer, at the specific pragmatism of it, at the 7-year-old who had learned that blanket promises to tell the truth were not always wise, because truth had consequences, and consequences had to be assessed before they were agreed to. Fair enough, Cole said. Here's my question. He paused. He looked at her face, at the swollen eye, at the dried split lip, at the bruise on the cheekbone. Who did this to you? Lily looked at him. She looked at his vest, at the patches, at the skull on the left chest pocket. She looked at the 8 other large men in leather now visible behind him, most of them watching from a respectful distance, none of them moving. She looked back at Cole's face, and she said 4 words in a voice so flat and certain and exhausted that it hit him the way very quiet things hit, when they carry more weight than loud ones. It's my dad, sir. The gas station went very still. Not literally. The fuel pump was still running. A truck was still pulling out of the lot. The teenager at pump 2 was still doing whatever he was doing. The world was still moving at its normal Tuesday speed. But something in the particular space that Cole occupied, the space directly around a crouching man and a 7-year-old girl in a yellow raincoat, went absolutely still. Cole did not move. He did not look away from her face. He did not let his expression change into the thing it wanted to change into, because she was watching his face the way children watch the faces of adults in crisis, looking for the thing that would tell her whether she had just made a mistake by telling the truth. He breathed. Where is your dad right now, Lily? She tilted her head toward the gas station store. Inside, she said. Getting beer. Cole stood up slowly. He turned around. Behind him, 8 men who had been watching from a distance had now moved to a closer distance without being asked, because that was the thing about a chapter that had ridden together for a long time. You didn't always need words. Sometimes you needed the particular quality of someone's stillness, and you understood. Denny, Cole said quietly. Yeah. Stay with her. Don't touch anything. Don't let her move. Copy. Cole looked at the store. Through the glass front he could see the interior. Refrigerator cases along the back wall. A heavy-set man in his 30s, in a gray t-shirt, standing at the beer case with his back to the window. Cole looked at him for a long moment. Then he looked at the teenager at pump 2. Son, he said, not loudly. Go inside and tell whoever is working the register that someone needs to call 911 right now. You tell them there is a child outside who has been assaulted. You tell them to make the call before that man at the beer case gets to the register. Can you do that? The teenager stared at him. Now, Cole said. The teenager went. Cole turned back around and crouched back down in front of Lily. She was watching him with those dark, careful eyes. Lily, he said, I'm going to stay right here with you. Okay? I'm not going anywhere. She looked at him. People say that, she said. I know, Cole said. I'm saying it anyway. Denny Howell was 48 years old and had been writing with Cole's chapter for 9 years, and had in that time seen Cole Merritt in situations that would have unraveled most men, and had never once seen him look the way he looked right now. Denny crouched beside Lily after Cole stood up and moved toward the store entrance. He did not try to talk to her immediately. He had enough sense to understand that a child who had just told a stranger the most dangerous truth of her life needed a moment before she was asked to perform normalcy. He just crouched beside her and was there and let her be the one to decide when the silence ended. She looked at him sideways. He looked back. She said, You're very large. I am, Denny agreed. Does it hurt? Being large. Your stomach, she said. You were holding it when you got off your bike. Denny blinked. He had been holding his stomach. Road cramps. He had forgotten about them entirely in the last 3 minutes. It did, he said. Not so much now. She considered this. My stomach hurts sometimes, she said. When I'm scared. Mine too, Denny said. She looked at the store entrance where Cole had gone. Is he going to make my dad mad? She said. Denny kept his voice even. He's just going to make sure the right people know what's happening, he said. That's all. The right people don't usually do anything, Lily said. She said it the way children say things that are true and devastating. Without drama, without expectation that the devastation would be acknowledged. Just as a statement of accumulated experience delivered in the flat tone of someone who has stopped being surprised by the confirmation of things they already knew. Denny looked at her face, at the eye, at the lip. He looked away before she could see what was on his face. Well, he said carefully, Cole's not usual people. Inside the store, Cole walked in through the glass door and the bell above it rang once. The woman behind the register was in her 40s with reading glasses pushed up on her head and the expression of someone who had already seen the teenager come in and had already picked up the phone before Cole got through the door. She was speaking quietly into it. Cole read her lips. She was on with 911. He gave her a single nod. He turned. The man at the beer case was still at the beer case. His back was to the store. He was taking his time. The specific, unhurried time of a man who was comfortable in his own pace and accustomed to the world waiting for him. Danny Dawson was 34 years old and built like a man who had been athletic once, and had let it go to something harder and less defined. He had dark hair going thin at the crown, and the back of his neck had the reddened, slightly coarsened texture of a man who spent time outdoors in weather. He wore a gray t-shirt with a faded logo on the back, and jeans that had dried mud on the left knee. He pulled 2 six-packs from the case. He turned around. He saw Cole. Most men, seeing Cole Merritt standing 12 feet away in a gas station looking at them with that particular quality of attention, would have registered something. A shift in the room's temperature. A recalibration of whatever they had planned for the next 60 seconds. Danny Dawson registered something. He registered it and made a choice about it. The choice of a man who had made similar choices many times before and had not yet been made to pay the full cost of them. He made the choice to be unimpressed. Help you? Danny said. You have a daughter, Cole said. Yellow raincoat. Outside at pump 3. Danny's jaw moved slightly. Yeah, he said. So she's 7 years old and she's sitting on a concrete curb by herself and her face looks like someone put their hands on her, Cole said. His voice was completely even, not raised, not aggressive. The voice of a man reading facts from a document. And she told me you're her father. Danny set the 6-packs down on the nearest shelf. What'd she tell you exactly? Enough. She falls, Danny said. She's always falling. Clumsy kid. Always has been. Cole looked at him. He had heard that sentence before. Not those exact words. The sentence came in variations. She fell down the stairs. She ran into the door. She's always been clumsy. He had heard it in the backs of ambulances from women with broken orbital bones. He had heard it from parents whose children had bruises and patterns that did not match the architecture of falling. He knew the sentence. He knew exactly what the sentence was for. The bruise on her cheekbone, Cole said. It's the shape of a hand. Specifically, the shape of a backhand. An EMT sees it differently than most people. Danny's face changed. Not dramatically. A tightening. A small recalculation. You a cop? No. Then get out of my way. He picked up the 6-packs and moved toward the register. Cole did not move out of his way. He simply did not move. Danny stopped. They were 6 feet apart now. Danny Dawson was not a small man. He was broad across the shoulders and had the specific confidence of a man who had used his size to end conversations before. He looked at Cole with the expectation that the not moving would resolve itself in his favor the way things in Harlan's Creek generally resolve themselves in his favor. Cole looked at him with absolutely no expression at all. Your daughter is outside, Cole said. She hasn't been cleaned up. She hasn't been given anything for the pain. She has been sitting on a concrete curb, and she is not crying. And you know why she's not crying? Danny said nothing. Because she's learned it doesn't help, Cole said. A 7-year-old has learned that crying doesn't change anything. Think about what that means. Get out of my way, Danny said again. Harder this time. The police are on their way, Cole said. You can wait for them in here, or you can go outside. Either way, you are not getting into a vehicle with that child until they arrive. Something crossed Danny Dawson's face that was uglier than anger. It was the expression of a man who was calculating whether the situation was still manageable. Running the math. The math he had been running his whole life in Harlan's Creek, where his father's name and his father's 22 years as deputy sheriff had been a kind of weather system that made certain consequences simply not arrive. "You have no idea who my father is," Danny said. "I don't need to," Cole said. "My father is." "Whatever your father is," Cole said, "he is not here right now. What is here right now is your daughter's face and 2 six-packs of beer and the police coming down Route 11. The woman behind the register had set the phone down. She was watching. Her name was Carol Briggs, and she had worked this station for 14 years, and she had seen Danny Dawson come through this door more times than she could count, and she had known about his father, and she had known what knowing about his father meant in a town like Harlan's Creek, and she had made the calculation that most people made when the math seemed to favor silence. She was not making that calculation anymore, because a man in a leather vest had walked through her door and had not lowered his voice and had not moved out of the way, and Carol Briggs was discovering that watching someone not move out of the way was doing something to her own willingness to move out of the way. She picked the phone back up. She called the County Child Services line. She had the number memorized. She had memorized it 2 years ago and never used it. She used it now. Outside, Lily sat with Denny and the chapter and held the small plastic horse she had taken from her raincoat pocket. She held it in both hands and looked at it with the focused attention of a child who has found something to look at that is safer than looking at the thing she is actually thinking about. Denny saw the horse. "Who's that?" he said. "Sonny," Lily said. "Good name for a horse." "My mom gave her to me," Lily said, "before she left." Denny was quiet. "Where'd your mom go?" he said carefully. Lily looked at Sonny. "Away," she said. "Dad says she's not coming back." She ran her thumb along the horse's plastic mane. "I think she might though," she said. "Someday." Denny looked at the small plastic horse in the small hands of the 7-year-old girl in the yellow raincoat. He pressed his lips together. He looked at the sky. Then he looked back at her. "Sonny's a good horse," he said. "Looks like she's been well taken care of." Lily looked at the horse. Something in her face softened for just a moment. Just a fraction of a 7-year-old being seen in something she had put her heart into. "I brush her every night," Lily said, "even though she's plastic." "Especially because she's plastic," Denny said. "Plastic horses need more brushing." Lily looked at him sideways. "That's not true," she said. "I know," Denny said. "But you smiled." She had. Briefly. Involuntarily. The smile of a child who did not mean to smile and could not help it and was not sure what to do with the fact that it had happened. She looked back at Sonny. Behind her, the glass door of the gas station store opened. Danny Dawson came through the door first. He had made his calculation. The calculation was that he was Danny Dawson in Harlan's Creek, Kentucky, and that certain things did not happen to Danny Dawson in Harlan's Creek, Kentucky, because certain things had never happened to Danny Dawson in Harlan's Creek, Kentucky, and the machinery that had prevented them was still in place and would continue to prevent them, because that was the nature of machinery that had been well maintained over a long period of time. He came through the door with the 2 six-packs and the specific forward momentum of a man who had decided the situation was still his to manage. Cole came through the door behind him. He stopped 2 steps outside the door and stood there. Danny walked toward pump 3, toward Lily. Lily saw him coming, and her whole body did something. Not a flinch, not a cower. Something more internal than that. A contraction. The specific gathering inward of a person whose nervous system has learned to reduce its surface area when a particular presence enters the room. She pulled Sonny closer. "Lily, get up," Danny said. "We're going." Lily didn't move. She looked at Denny. Denny was standing now. He was not large in the way that Hitch from Cole's previous chapter had been large. He was large in the way that men are large when they have spent decades doing physical work, and the size has become structural rather than decorative. He stood between Lily and the direction Danny was walking from without having moved in any way that was aggressive or even particularly obvious. He had simply redistributed his weight, and the redistribution had put him between them. Danny stopped. He looked at Denny. He looked at the 8 other chapter members arranged across the lot in the loose non-formation that was not a formation. He looked at Cole, standing 2 steps from the door. The calculation ran again. It ran differently this time. "Move," Danny said to Denny. "She's okay where she is," Denny said. "That's my daughter." "I know it." "Then move." "Police are coming," Denny said. 3 minutes, maybe less. You can wait." Danny set the 6-packs on the hood of the nearest car. It was not his car. He did not appear to notice or care. "Who called the police?" he said. He was not asking. He was performing asking in the way people perform asking when they already know the answer and want the person who knows it to understand that the knowing will have consequences. "The station clerk called 911, Cole said from behind him. "When your daughter told me who hurt her." Danny turned around. "She fell," he said. "You said that inside," Cole said. "The answer is the same now as it was then." "I don't know who you think you are." "My name is Cole Merritt," Cole said. "I'm nobody in particular. What I am specifically is a former EMT who has seen the difference between a fall and a backhand a significant number of times, and I know which one I'm looking at." Danny stared at him. "You're going to be very sorry," Danny said. "When my father—" "Your father," Cole said, "is not here. You have said that twice now, and I want you to understand something." He took 1 step forward, not threatening, just closing the distance to a conversational range that required attention. "Whatever your father is in this county, whatever calls he makes, and whatever cases he closes, and whatever officers he has known for 20 years, none of that is going to be the thing that determines what happens to your daughter today. Do you understand me?" Danny looked at him. "Because what determines what happens to your daughter today is her face," Cole said, "which is documented, which has been seen by 9 witnesses, which has already been described in a 911 call that is now on record. Your father cannot close a 911 recording." Something shifted in Danny Dawson's face. The calculation had changed again, but it had not changed into anything good. It had changed into something smaller and harder and more specific. The calculation of a man who has lost the open field and is now looking for the gap in the fence. He turned back toward Lily. "Lily, come here," he said. His voice had changed. Lower. The specific lower that was not softer, but was quieter in the way that made it more dangerous. Lily did not move. Her hand tightened around Sonny. "Lily." "She's okay where she is," Denny said again. "She is my daughter, and you are—" "Sir." The voice came from the road. Everyone turned. A Harlan's Creek police cruiser had pulled into the lot. Not with sirens, just with the lights going and the specific quiet authority of a vehicle that did not need to announce itself loudly because its presence was announcement enough. The officer who got out was in his mid-30s, broad-shouldered. He had the look of someone who knew this lot, knew this station, knew the town around it in the specific way that officers know the geography of their jurisdiction. He also had the look of someone who recognized Danny Dawson. Cole saw it. The recognition, the specific quality of it. Not the recognition of a law enforcement officer who has a file on a suspect. The recognition of a man who knows another man from somewhere that predates the uniform. Cole filed this. The officer's name tag said Briggs. Cole noted the name. Carol Briggs behind the register. Officer Briggs at the scene. The same last name. He filed that too. "Danny," the officer said. "Not sir. Not Mr. Dawson. Danny." The familiarity of a man using a first name without thinking about it, because first names were simply the register in which he knew this person. "Hey, Kevin," Danny said. And the relief in his voice was specific and immediate and visible to everyone in that lot who was paying attention. Cole was paying attention. Officer Briggs walked toward Lily. He crouched down in front of her. "Hey there, sweetheart. What's going on?" Lily looked at him. She looked at Danny. She looked at Cole. Cole gave her a small nod. Just barely. Just enough. Lily looked back at Officer Briggs. "I fell," she said. The lot went quiet. Not because anyone was surprised. Because everyone understood what had just happened and what it meant and what it cost a 7-year-old girl to say it. She had looked at Danny Dawson's face, and she had looked at Officer Briggs saying Danny's first name like a friend, and she had done the math that she had been doing her entire life, and she had arrived at the answer she always arrived at. Protect yourself. Say what keeps the peace. Say what keeps him calm. Say the thing that makes the thing stop. She fell. Danny said immediately to Briggs. Like I said, she's always. She didn't fall, Cole said. Briggs stood up and looked at Cole. Sir, I'm going to need you to. My name is Cole Merritt, Cole said. I am a former licensed EMT, and I have been with this child for the last 8 minutes. Before Officer Briggs arrived, she told me directly that her father was responsible for her injuries. She told 9 witnesses the same thing. I need you to document that. Sir, I need you to document that, Cole said again. Because what just happened? This child changing her answer when she saw you greet her father by his first name. That is also something I need you to document. Briggs stared at him. Are you telling me how to do my job? I'm telling you what I witnessed, Cole said. As a witness, which I am, which 9 people in this lot are. And I am also telling you that if this child is placed in a vehicle with her father before a proper assessment is done, I will be calling the State Child Protective Services line myself, and I will be describing specifically what happened when you arrived. The lot was very still. Danny Dawson looked at Kevin Briggs. Kevin Briggs looked at Cole Merritt. Cole Merritt looked at nobody in particular and everybody at once. And Lily Mae Dawson sat with Sunny in her hands and watched the adults in her life arrange themselves around her the way they always arranged themselves and waited, with the patience of a child who had learned that patience was the only tool she reliably had, to find out what the arrangement was going to cost her this time. The standoff lasted 11 minutes. Cole knew because he watched the clock on the gas station's exterior sign the entire time. The time and temperature sign that clicked between 54 degrees and 231, and then 232, and then 233. 11 minutes of Officer Kevin Briggs standing in the lot of the Crossroads Gas and Fuel trying to determine which version of the situation he was going to commit to. 11 minutes of Danny Dawson standing near his truck with his arms crossed and his jaw set and his eyes moving between Briggs and Cole with the specific calculation of a man who was used to these situations resolving in his favor and was watching this one not resolve. 11 minutes of Lily sitting with Denny and holding Sunny. Cole used the 11 minutes. He took out his phone and he made 2 calls. The first call was to a woman named Patricia Hale, who ran the state-level child advocacy office out of Frankfort, Kentucky. Cole had met Patricia 12 years ago under circumstances he did not discuss with anyone in the chapter. What he had discussed with her, in a conversation that had lasted 3 hours and had happened in the parking lot of a hospital, was the specific and systemic way that small county law enforcement could close cases involving men with connections before those cases developed into anything that required accountability. Patricia had been fighting that system for 30 years. She answered on the second ring. Cole gave her the facts in 60 seconds. The child's name, the injuries, the father's name, the officer's first name familiarity with the suspect, the child recanting when she saw the greeting. Patricia said, "I'll make a call." Cole said, "Make it now." "I'm already dialing," Patricia said. The second call was to a man named Marcus Webb, who was a photojournalist based in Lexington, who had done a piece 3 years ago on domestic violence case closure rates in Kentucky counties, with strong law enforcement family ties. Cole had read the piece. He had saved Marcus Webb's number, because he was a man who understood that documentation was the enemy of the system that Danny Dawson was counting on. Marcus answered. Cole gave him the location. Marcus said he was 2 hours out. Cole said, "Drive faster." He hung up and put his phone in his pocket and turned back to the lot. Briggs had made a decision. Or rather, Briggs had made a non-decision, which was itself a decision. He had taken a statement from Danny. He had looked at Lily's face for approximately 40 seconds. He had written something in his notepad. He had not called for medical assistance. He had not called child services. He had not made any move to separate Lily from her father pending assessment. He walked toward Cole. "Mr. Merritt," he said, "I've taken statements. I'm going to follow up with child services." "You're going to follow up," Cole said. "Yes, sir. You're not calling them now. These things have a process." "The process," Cole said quietly, is that a child with documented injuries consistent with physical assault requires an immediate welfare check and temporary separation from the suspected perpetrator. That is not a follow-up process. That is the immediate process. Mr. Merritt, I understand your concern. Do you? Cole said. Because your concern, Officer Briggs, appears to be approximately 40 seconds long. This child's concern has been going on for considerably longer than that. Briggs's jaw tightened. I'm asking you to let me do my job. I'm asking you to do it, Cole said. Those are different requests. Behind Briggs, Danny had moved back toward Pump 3, toward Lily. He was not moving aggressively. He was moving with the deliberate, casual confidence of a man who had seen the situation shift back toward familiar ground and was reclaiming his territory without needing to announce the reclamation. Lily, Danny said, get up. We're going home. Mr. Dawson, Cole said, stepping around Briggs. She's not going anywhere yet. Danny turned. Kevin, he said, not looking at Cole, looking at Briggs. Tell this man to back off. Briggs opened his mouth. Lily stood up. Not because Danny told her to. Not because anyone told her to. She stood up and she looked at Cole and she said in a voice that was completely quiet and completely clear, he does this a lot. The lot went very still. Danny looked at her. The specific look of a man who has just had a line crossed that he had not expected to be crossed. The look of a man recalibrating the consequences of a 7-year-old's decision to tell the truth in front of witnesses a second time. Lily, he does it when he drinks, Lily said. She was still looking at Cole, not at her father, not at Briggs, at Cole. And he drank last night, and he drank this morning, and the last time he drank this much I had to go to school, and Mrs. Carpenter asked me what happened, and I said I fell, but she knew I didn't fall, and she sent a note home, and he was very mad about the note. Nobody moved. Mrs. Carpenter, Cole said carefully. Is that your teacher? Yes. How many notes has she sent home? Lily thought about it. 3, she said. Maybe 4. Cole looked at Briggs. Briggs was writing in his notepad. Finally, the pen was moving and the expression on his face had changed. Not completely. Not into the expression of a man who had fully abandoned the calculation he'd arrived with, but into something that had shifted enough. The expression of a man who understood that the audience had grown and the notes were being taken, and the 7-year-old had just spoken on the record in front of 9 witnesses and 1 gas station clerk who was watching from inside the store and had not stopped watching since Cole had walked through her door. Danny Dawson was looking at his daughter. His face had gone through several things and had arrived at something that Cole recognized. Not remorse, not guilt exactly. The specific expression of a man who has made a miscalculation and is now sitting inside the consequences of it, and is trying to determine whether the consequences are as large as they appear or whether they can still be managed down to something he can contain. Lily, Danny said. His voice was different now. Quieter. The specific quiet that was not calm. You know that's not. Mr. Dawson, Cole said. Stop talking to her. Danny looked at him. I'm her father. Right now, Cole said, you are a person who is not going to speak to her until someone with the appropriate authority and training has spoken to her first. That is what is happening right now. He looked at Briggs. Call child services, Cole said. Now, not as a follow-up. Right now, with your radio, in this parking lot, where everyone can hear you make the call. Briggs looked at Cole. He looked at Danny. He looked at Lily standing with her plastic horse. He reached for his radio. It was not a graceful capitulation. It was not a transformation. It was a man doing the right thing with the specific reluctance of someone for whom the right thing was not the natural direction, and who was doing it anyway, because the alternative had become too visible and too witnessed, and too documented to be the easier choice anymore. He made the call. Cole listened to every word. When Briggs finished the call, Cole looked at Lily. She was looking at him. They're coming, he said. Will they take me away? She said. They're going to make sure you're safe, Cole said. That's the first thing. That's not what I asked, Lily said. Cole crouched down. He looked at her for a moment. I don't know exactly what happens next, he said. But I know that what you just did, what you just said out loud in front of all these people, that was the bravest thing I have seen in a very long time. And it matters. What you said matters. Do you understand? Lily looked at him. She looked at Sonny. She put the horse back in her pocket. Will you stay? She said. Cole looked at her. 12 years collapsed into a single second. Yes, he said. I'll stay. The child services worker arrived 40 minutes after Briggs made the call. Her name was Donna Marsh, and she was in her late 40s, and she moved through the gas station lot with the practiced efficiency of a woman who had done this specific job for a long time and had developed the ability to read a scene the way an experienced reader reads a page. Fast, complete, nothing missed. She read the scene. She read Danny Dawson standing at his truck with his arms crossed and the beer in the truck bed and the specific quality of studied casualness he was wearing. She read Officer Briggs standing between Danny and the pump island with a notepad and an expression that told her something about the pressure that had been required to get him to this position. She read the 9 men in leather vests distributed across the lot in the pattern that is not a pattern. She read Cole crouched beside a 7-year-old girl in a yellow raincoat. She walked to Cole first. You called the state office, she said. I did, Cole said. Patricia Hale called our county director 20 minutes ago, Donna said. He called me. I understand the dynamics here. Good, Cole said. Donna looked at Lily. Hi, she said. My name's Donna. What's yours? Lily, Lily said. Lily, that's pretty. She crouched down. Can I sit with you a minute? Lily looked at Cole. Cole gave her the nod. Lily looked back at Donna. Okay, she said. Cole stood up and moved a few feet away. Close enough. Not in the conversation, but adjacent to it. The position he had been in for most of the afternoon. Close enough to matter. Far enough to let the thing happen. He watched Danny Dawson watching Donna talk to Lily. Danny's jaw was working. The calculation was running continuously now, updating on new information every few minutes. Cole could see it. The math of a man who had been doing this math his whole life and was now in a version of it where the variables had changed in ways he had not anticipated and was not finding the familiar solution. Cole's phone buzzed. Patricia Hale. He answered. The county director has flagged the case, Patricia said. It's being handled at state level now, not county. That means Officer Briggs and whatever relationship he has with the Dawson family is no longer the determining factor. Good, Cole said. The father has 2 prior domestic calls, Patricia said. Both closed at county level. One closed by Briggs directly. One closed by a sergeant whose name I'm looking at right now and who has a connection to the paternal grandfather. His father was the deputy, Cole said. Was and still is connected, Patricia said. Retired but connected. Cole, this child has been failed twice on record before today. I know, Cole said. The state-level placement protocol means she cannot be returned to the father's custody pending a full investigation. Donna Marsh has the authority to make that call today. Does she know that? She does now, Patricia said. I just got off the phone with her supervisor. Cole let out a breath he had not fully realized he was holding. There's a maternal grandmother, Patricia said. A woman named Ruth Dawson, not the same last name, she remarried. Ruth Calloway. Cole went still. Say that again, he said. Ruth Calloway. She lives in Harlan's Creek, Cole said. Yes. How did you know? Cole looked at the gas station sign. Crossroads Gas and Fuel. Route 11. He had pulled into this gas station because it was on Route 11 and it had a diner and Denny had wanted beef stew. He had pulled into this station because it was called Crossroads. His road name was Crossroads. He had been called Crossroads for 19 years because of a decision he had made at a crossroads on a night he did not talk about. The night everything about his life had split into before and after. He was standing at a gas station called Crossroads in Harlan's Creek, Kentucky, and the maternal grandmother of the child in the yellow raincoat had his last name. Not his name, not a relation, just his name, Cole. Patricia said. I'm here, he said. Does the grandmother know what's happening? We're trying to reach her now. I'll find her, Cole said. He hung up. He walked back to Donna and Lily. Donna looked up at him. She's being very clear, Donna said quietly, and very specific. The detail level is consistent with ongoing trauma, not a single incident. I know, Cole said. I'm going to recommend immediate temporary placement with a maternal grandmother pending full investigation, Donna said. The father will not have access during that period. He's going to push back, Cole said. He can push back through the state process, Donna said, which is now flagged. Cole nodded. He looked at Danny. Danny was on his phone now. Cole knew who he was calling. He was calling his father. Cole walked toward Danny. Not aggressively, not fast, just walking. The same walk he had used all afternoon. The walk that said he was going somewhere and was in no hurry about it and had already decided what was going to happen when he got there. Danny saw him coming and turned slightly away. The body language of a person trying to have a private conversation in a public space. I need to speak with you, Cole said. Danny held up a finger. Still on the phone. Cole waited. Dad, Danny was saying, I need you to call Kevin. No, now. The state office is a pause. I know, but they called Donna Marsh directly and another pause. No, just call him. He hung up. He looked at Cole. You have no idea what you've done, Danny said. I know exactly what I've done, Cole said. I've made sure your daughter is seen by the right people today. That's what I've done. This town, Cole said, is not going to be able to close this one. Not today. The state office is involved. It's flagged. Your father can call Officer Briggs, and Officer Briggs can call his sergeant, and his sergeant can call whoever he calls, and none of those calls are going to change what has already been entered into a state-level record. Danny stared at him. Who are you, he said, not rhetorically, with the specific disoriented quality of a man who genuinely could not account for how this stranger had arrived in his life and dismantled the infrastructure that had protected him. I told you, Cole said. Nobody in particular. He turned and walked back toward Lily. Donna was helping her up from the curb. Lily looked at Cole. Are they going to take me somewhere? She said. They're going to take you somewhere safe, Cole said. Your grandmother's coming. Something happened in Lily's face. Grandma Ruth. Yes. The change was immediate and specific. Not joy exactly. Something more careful than joy. Something that had learned to be careful about good news, because good news had been unreliable before. But underneath the care, something real and immediate and 7 years old that did not know how to be completely careful, no matter how much it had been taught to be. Is she really coming? Lily said. She's coming, Cole said. Lily held Sonny. She looked at the horse. Sonny, she said quietly. Grandma Ruth is coming. Cole stood beside her and said nothing. Because some moments don't need words. Some moments just need a person willing to stand in them and not look away. Ruth Calloway arrived at 4:47. She drove a 10-year-old Ford sedan with a crack in the passenger side windshield and a back seat full of things that accumulate in a car that a person uses for everything. Bags, books, a folded blanket, a cardboard box from a grocery store containing items whose purpose was not immediately clear. She parked at the edge of a lot and got out. She was 63 years old, small and direct with white hair, cut practically short, and hands that had worked hard her whole life and eyes that moved fast across a scene and arrived at their conclusions quickly and without sentimentality. She had been called on the drive over by Donna Marsh and had been told the situation in the direct language of a professional who understood that Ruth Calloway was not a woman who needed information softened. She had listened. She had said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. She had been there in 18. She crossed the lot, and she went directly to Lily, and she did not say anything for a moment. She crouched down, and she looked at Lily's face, and she did what Cole had not allowed himself to do. She let her face show what it showed. Oh, baby, she said. Lily's chin trembled. It was the first time Cole had seen anything in Lily's composure move in that direction. The entire afternoon she had held herself with the specific sealed quality of a child who had learned containment as survival. She had been direct, and she had been quiet, and she had said what she said with a flatness that was its own kind of devastation. But Grandma Ruth saying, oh, baby, in that voice did what nothing else had done. The chin trembled. Then Lily stepped forward and put her arms around Ruth's neck, and Ruth put her arms around Lily and held her with the specific ferocity of a woman who had known this was happening and had not been able to stop it and was now here and was not going anywhere. Cole turned away. He did not have a good reason to turn away. The lot was in front of him, and the road beyond it, and the October sky above that, and there was nothing in any of those directions that required his attention. He turned away, because he needed a moment that did not have an audience. He pressed the heel of his hand against his left eye. He breathed. Behind him he heard Lily say something to Ruth that he couldn't make out, and Ruth say something back, and then Lily's voice again, small and muffled by Ruth's shoulder. "I kept Sonny safe," Lily said. "The whole time." "I know you did, baby," Ruth said. "I know you did." Cole stood with his back to it and breathed. Denny appeared beside him. He did not say anything. He just stood there in the way that Denny had been standing there all afternoon. The specific standing there of a man who understood that his job today had been to be present and had done that job without needing it acknowledged. "You good?" Denny said eventually. "Yeah," Cole said. "You don't look good." I said, "I'm good, Denny." "Okay." A pause. "Josie would be 19, Cole said. Denny was quiet. "I know," he said. "She had a plastic horse too," Cole said. "Different color. Hers was gray. She called it Storm." "I remember," Denny said. "She carried it everywhere." "Cole." "I'm fine," Cole said. "I just needed to say it out loud." Denny nodded. They stood. Behind them the sounds of the lot continued. Donna Marsh on her phone. Officer Briggs writing his report. Danny Dawson standing by his truck doing the calculation that had no good solution left in it. Ruth Calloway stood up from holding Lily and walked toward Cole. He turned around. She looked at him the way she had looked at the lot when she arrived. Fast and complete and arriving at conclusions without sentimentality. "You called Patricia Hale," she said. "Yes." "How do you know Patricia?" Cole was quiet for a moment. "I was in a situation 12 years ago," he said. "Similar dynamics. Different county. My own daughter." Ruth looked at him. "Josie," she said. Cole went still. "How do you know that name?" "Patricia told me," Ruth said. "On the drive over. She said the man who called her today had lost his own daughter to a closed case 12 years ago, and that she had always felt responsible for not doing more." Cole looked at the road beyond the lot. "She did everything she could," he said. "She said you told her that at the time and that she didn't believe you." "I meant it. She knows that now," Ruth said. "She said she's been waiting for a chance to get it right." Cole pressed his lips together. "She got it right today," he said. Ruth looked at him for a long moment. "Mr. Merritt," she said. Cole, what happened to your daughter?" Cole looked at the sky. "Custody case," he said. "Her mother and I county judge. Her mother's family had connections in the county. The case closed in her favor. I got supervised visitation that reduced over 18 months to nothing. Josie was 7. He paused. "She's 19 now. We don't speak." Ruth was quiet. "I'm sorry," she said. "I sat outside a courthouse in Pendleton County, Kentucky for 4 hours after the ruling," Cole said. "And then I got on my bike and I rode. I've been riding since." "And today," Ruth said. "Today I stopped," Cole said. Ruth looked at him. Something in her face moved that was not sentimentality and was not performance. It was the specific expression of a woman who has been fighting a particular kind of darkness for a long time and has just watched someone else do the same and wants them to understand that the doing of it was seen. "You saved her," Ruth said. "She saved herself," Cole said. "She told the truth twice. The second time in front of everyone. I just made sure there were people there to hear it." Ruth shook her head slightly. "That's not a small thing," she said. "Making sure there are people there." Cole looked at Lily, who was now holding Ruth's hand and showing her Sonny with a specific focused presentation of a child demonstrating something important to someone she trusted. "No," he said. "I suppose it's not." Ruth followed his gaze. "She asks about her mother," Ruth said quietly. "Danny told her she left and isn't coming back. That's not entirely true. Her mother is in a treatment program in Louisville. She's been clean for 8 months. She doesn't know where things stand with Danny legally because Danny has kept her away." Cole looked at her. "With the custody case changed." "With the custody case changed, her mother can be contacted," Ruth said. "That's a conversation for down the road. But it's a possible road." Cole nodded. Donna Marsh walked over. "Mrs. Calloway, I have the temporary placement paperwork. If you're ready." "I'm ready," Ruth said. She squeezed Cole's arm once. brief and direct. Then she walked toward Donna. Cole stood in the lot. The October sky had gone the specific gray gold of late afternoon, the light that makes everything it touches look considered. The bikes were still lined up along the pump island. The chapter was still distributed across the lot in the way they had been all afternoon, some sitting on their bikes now, some talking quietly among themselves. They had been here for 2.5 hours. Nobody had left. Nobody had asked how long this was going to take, or what the plan was, or when they were getting back on the road. They had just stayed. Cole looked at them and felt something that he did not have an easy name for. Something that was composed of several things simultaneously. Gratitude. Pride that was not about himself. The specific recognition of a group of people who had chosen, without being asked, to stand in a difficult place and remain in it until the difficult thing was finished. He walked back toward the bikes. Denny was sitting on the beef stew from the diner, apparently having happened at some point, because he had a satisfied expression that had not been there before. "When did you eat?" Cole said. "Carol from the register brought it out about an hour ago," Denny said. "Also brought coffee for everyone. Wouldn't take any money." Cole looked at the store. Carol was behind the register. She saw him looking. She gave him a small nod. The nod of a woman who had picked up a phone today that she had memorized 2 years ago and never used, and was living with the fact of having finally used it. Cole nodded back. He looked at the road. He thought about Josie at 19 somewhere in Kentucky not speaking to him. He thought about Lily at 7 with her grandmother's hand and her plastic horse and a state-level flag on her file that was going to make this one harder to close than the two before it. He thought about a courthouse in Pendleton County and 4 hours on a bench and the road afterward. He thought about the word crossroads and what it meant and what it had meant to him for 19 years and what it meant now standing in the lot of a station by that name on a Wednesday afternoon in October. "We should move," Denny said. "Before dark." "Yeah," Cole said. But he did not move yet. He waited until the paperwork was done, until Ruth had Lily by the hand, until Danny Dawson had been told by Donna Marsh in terms that left no room for the calculation he was trying to run that the state process was now active and the temporary placement was final, and that contact with Lily was suspended pending the full investigation. He waited until Danny got in his truck, until the truck left the lot, until Lily and Ruth walked to Ruth's Ford sedan with a crack in the windshield. At the car door, Lily stopped. She turned around. She looked across the lot at Cole. She reached into her yellow raincoat pocket. She held up Sunny, not offering her, just showing her, the specific gesture of a child who wants someone to know that the thing that matters is still safe. Cole raised his hand. Not a wave, exactly, just a raised hand, a acknowledgement, a receipt of what she was showing him. Lily put Sunny back in her pocket. She got in the car. Ruth looked at Cole across the roof of the Ford for a moment. Then she got in. The car pulled out of the lot. Cole watched it go. He stood there until it was out of sight. Then he walked to his bike. He put on his helmet. He started the engine. The chapter started their engines around him one by one, and the lot filled with sound, and then they were moving out of the crossroads gas and fuel on Route 11 onto the road. The October evening opening up ahead of them in the specific way that roads open up when you have finished something and are moving forward from it. Cole rode. He rode for about 3 miles before he pulled over. He sat on his bike on the shoulder of Route 11 with the engine idling. He reached into the inside pocket of his vest, his left side. He took out his wallet. Inside the wallet, behind everything else, was a photograph, worn at the edges from years of being carried. A girl at 7 years old with dark hair and a gap in her front teeth and a gray plastic horse held up for the camera with both hands. Josie. Cole looked at the photograph for a long time. Then he took out his phone. He scrolled to a number he had not called in 4 years. He looked at it. He put the phone back in his pocket. He put the photograph back in his wallet. He sat on the shoulder of Route 11 for another moment. Then he pulled back onto the road. He would call the number. Not today, but soon. He had done the hard thing today. He had stopped at a crossroads, and he had stayed, and he had seen a child who needed to be seen, and the seeing had cost him something, and had given him something, and both the cost and the gift were real. Tomorrow, he would call the number. Tonight he rode. The road was long, and the evening was cold, and somewhere behind him in a Ford sedan, with a cracked windshield, a 7-year-old girl was riding toward her grandmother's house with a plastic horse in her pocket and a state-level file with her name on it that was going to be harder to close than the ones before it. And somewhere ahead of Cole, Merritt the road went on the way roads go on when a man has finally stopped running from one crossroads and has started riding toward the next one.